What's up, fam? Extraordinary Life with Elijah. And today's episode, I don't know if there's necessarily an extraordinary, just a extraordinary lesson learned with God that I wanted to pass along to you guys. But before we jump into that, I'm gonna need to get some zesty booch. It's gotta happen. Guys, Griff, Zesty Booch, he just gave me free booch. Oh my goodness. Oh, so good. This is what generosity tastes like right here. Generosity in this moment tastes like mellow mule. Oh, I love moments like that. So beautiful. So just went in and got my hair cut by Chris. So obviously from video from February 22nd, super meaningful interaction. But as far as you in this time and space, Sunday, December 3rd, 2023 at 10:50 a.m. MST. As you look back at all the videos, that any time that you see me with my hat off in a video, I went in and got my hair cut with Chris. I posited in that video as I was, just dealing with so much emotion, so much insight at that point in time. Really saying, I hope that we're still friends. But here's the ticket. If you're gonna be friends with somebody for a long time, you gotta hang out with them, see them, engage them. So I'm gonna keep engaging. Chris, it's been good, man. Today's insight, so good that it's so interesting that anytime that darkness attempts to lie to us, that all of the lies of darkness stem out of the truth of God. The thing you realize about Satan is that he is not creative, he's only imaginative. So he can't come up with his own thoughts and his extracurricular things. He can't create anything. He can only work with what God has already made. And in order to tell lies to us about who we are and our purpose in God, that God's created, and the only way he can tell us those lies is to take the truth of God over our lives, who we are, made in the image and likeness of God, and twist that. Amazing insight recently that's just so encouraged me about the person of David is that when David goes to fight Goliath, there's a sword that is listed as being a part of Goliath's weaponry. But the interesting part is that Goliath never wields that sword against David directly. You go through, and it talks about the spear that's the size of a weaver's beam, and his chainmail and his helmet and his greaves and all of this armament and weaponry, and there's a sword listed. But it's so interesting that when David says to Goliath, I'm going to strike you down, I'm going to take your sword, I'm going to cut your head off with it. I find it so interesting that David prophetically announces what he's going to do to Goliath before it ever even happens. That David had in mind, I'm going to strike you down, I'm going to take your sword away from you, and I'm going to cut your head off with it. Oh, the verse is escaping right now. I think it's in Isaiah that says that the enemy forges a sword, the blacksmith forges a sword, and that no weapon fashioned against you will stand. But it's so interesting to consider that passage, and that the enemy crafts a sword to be wielded against God's people, but that says that no weapon fashioned against you will succeed. So recently here, it was so interesting for me to consider that Goliath couldn't wield the sword that he had against David because it was David's sword. When it says that David strikes Goliath down and goes to him. It says that he pulls the sword from its sheath and cuts off Goliath's head. And then later the sword then goes before the Lord. It's in the tent. And when David leaves Saul's presence and goes to the priest and says, hey, do you have any weaponry? I'm on a secret mission for the king, and I left so quickly that I don't have weaponry. The priest says, we have the sword of Goliath here. David said, give it to me, for there is none like it. And then from that point on, David actually takes the sword of Goliath and wages war against the Philistines using the sword of their champion that he had wielded before all of the people of Israel to threaten them and to cause fear. That's the weapon that David wields against the enemies of God's people in waging warfare against them. I think that's so key because there's so many declarations that God has made over my life, over your life, that are true. They establish our identity in Him, and that darkness comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and to lie to us in those areas in order to get us to run away from and be afraid of what God has said to be true about us. I think it's so important to confront those lies, to confront those giant enemies, and to take back the word of the Lord over us in those areas. That while Satan may threaten us with lies, that he has impressive weaponry, he can't wield the word of the Lord over us if we'll take it back. And so hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a bit of a complex idea. I'm just kind of going for it. I hope God makes it plain for you, but just encourage you that in those areas where you face giant opposition, in your confidence or in wounding, whatever your specific area is where giant issues threaten you, to listen through to the lies that Satan is speaking to you and realize that there's truth there for you to be reclaimed, to be taken up as a weapon for you to wield against the enemy. If you subscribe to what I'm doing, hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. And if you loved this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. Pray blessings on our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I'll see you in the next video.